friends, and welcome to another Ask Zach. I hope you all are doing well. Today we're going to talk about 4 tips to really kind of up your game as far as soloing. So just some things that I've learned through the years from all the being around all sorts of crazy people and all the interviews and such that I've done, and just from personal experience. So first, a little short pause for the cause. If you've been enjoying the show, please go down and subscribe. If you've been watching the show for a while and you'd like to support it, go to askzach.com, and at the store we've got t-shirts and mugs and caps and all sorts of things. So I really appreciate that. Keeps the show going. All right, so here are 4 tips. First tip is to get a looper. The looper I have is just this MXR clone looper, and I guess it's supposed to be like a clone trooper or something. Anyway, I don't have any kind of MXR endorsement, and they didn't give me that or anything. That's just one that I picked up used. Got it from a coworker at True Tone, and I had been using a Ditto looper, the little mini one that just had a single foot switch and a single knob, and I just found that hard to use. And this one has 2 foot switches and a single knob, and it's still simple and easy to use, but yet it's a little more intuitive, and having the 2 foot switches helps. As far as using them, there's a little bit of a learning curve and learning how to start it and stop it to where it will loop correctly and keep sounding like a real piece of music instead of it. Because if your time is not solid, and if you're speeding up or slowing down a bunch, it will not match well. So this is another excuse for you to get out your metronome and work through that. So number 1 is get a looper. Okay, number 2, and also just kind of a little aside, I recommend that what you play be something simple, and that way it's just not something crazy busy going on. So I just did like a kind of a little walking bass line that I played on the telly, and just put that on there, just a 1-4-5 thing. And don't use a lot of effects on there either. You can put effects on your guitar when you're soloing over the top of it. I think that just works better and sounds better instead of having a bunch of delay and other stuff going on all the time. The next would be to sing. So number 2 is sing. And what I mean by that is while you have your looper going with some type of rhythm changes of some kind that you're working on. And again, it's such an easy tool because you can put any pattern that you're having trouble with, and you can just lay down the changes, the rhythm changes on your guitar, and then you can start working on things. And one of the best ways is to sing over those changes. Just kind of scat or hum or grunt or whatever you think. And I was trying to think back where I first heard this from, and I believe it was somebody told me that when Dan Huff was producing Rascal Flatts. Of course, Dan Huff's an amazing session guitar player and record producer that's produced all sorts of acts. And so most of the time, he's just using session guys. But because the Rascal Flatts guys were, also musicians, they would be utilized on the sessions also. And so Joe Don Rooney, who's the guitar player in the band, as part of the actual, owning members of the band, he would also get to play on the records, and he would play most, I think all or most of the guitar solos. So, of course, he's got Tom Bukovac, and you've got Dan Huff as a producer, and so Dan Huff's kind of input to Joe Don Rooney when it came time to play solos on the Rascal Flatts tunes was sing it first. So I believe they would send him the tracks, and he could go home and kind of think through some stuff and kind of sing along with it. And then he would work up a guitar part, and then they could put it on top of there. And that's great, because what you sing is going to be more melodic and make more sense than what you might just play. because so many times when we're playing guitar, there's so much muscle memory that's involved, because that's a lot of guitar playing is, you know, you learn these patterns and you learn these things, and they're fine, but you need to break out of those. And to make your guitar playing interesting, you need to play melodies, you know, little mini melodies. Not that you have to play the melody of the song itself, but even, you know, your guitar solo or guitar parts should seem like counter melodies and points of interest. You know, when you get down to it, that's our job as musicians and guitar players, is to keep the listener interested. And so if you just keep playing kind of the same thing throughout a song, it's pretty darn boring. I think, and I do a whole nother video, and I probably will at some point, on critical listening. And when you're listening to great albums, start listening to how things change from the intro to the verse to the chorus to the bridge. All these things are done to keep the listener's interest going. So I was in the car with my wife, you know, the other night coming back from a friend's house, and the Tom Petty tune Wildflowers came on. And I was just listening to the masterful way that Rick Rubin and, well, Tom and the Heartbreakers, you know, kind of arranged that album, but especially the title track, just for an example, is, you know, the way that song starts off with acoustic guitar and kind of, you know, snare drum with brushes, and then I love it about halfway through the song, this triangle part comes in, and it just really lifts the song up. There's all these little things throughout the song that keep it interesting. Okay, so I'll get back to my main point. Sing your part. So whatever you sing is going to be more interesting than what just happens to fall underneath your fingers. And you may be able to impress the kids that, you know, with doing, you know, some fast licks and things like that. But if you sing a part, it will just be more interesting. Okay, so number one, get a looper. Number two, start singing parts. Number three is start thinking about rhythmic and melodic, you know, motifs. So in that little opening piece that I played with the looper going, there were a number of things that I did that had kind of a melodic motif. You know, you had this. And so you had it was played over the 1 chord and the 4 chord, and, you know, and by what I was playing, you could tell I was playing the 4 chord. And that's another thing about your playing, is even if there's not chords behind it, you should be able to tell what chord you're playing by the notes you're choosing. You know, it should sound appropriate. You know, like over the changes, you know, the 1-4-5, I could have just played E minor pentatonic the whole time, and that would have been okay. But then if you would have taken away the backing track, you wouldn't have known what chord I was playing over necessarily. While if I'm spelling out chord tones and have some kind of melody going, you know, like this is a melodic motif. That's one thing. And then I kind of kept it going over the 4 chord, and then it came back to the 1 chord. I did it again. And then I gave the listener something else to hear when I played over the 5 chord. That's when I, you know, or maybe I did. But those things keep it interesting. And so there's some melody and kind of connective tissue. And that's important to have, you know, to keep the listener interested. If it's just a bunch of notes, you're going to wear people out. But when there's a melody to it, and someone can walk away from when you soloed and they start going, it's like, that's good. Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're playing a swing tune or what you're playing, but you need to have something that people will remember. Hopefully they can hum it. So you've got melodic motifs, and then also there's rhythmic motifs. So here's an example of a rhythmic motif. Okay, so there I had da 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 da, and so that even though I wasn't repeating the exact same melody over and over again, I mean there was some repetition there, but still it was the rhythmic thing. And so you might want to do that over the 1 chord, and then you do something else over the 4 chord. You don't want to just wear that out. But yeah, that's a big part of keeping things interesting, is having motifs. Don't wear them out, but just have those things that you come back to. And another thing you can do is just play something at an octave, or play something up a third. Yeah. That's an example of me playing the same thing and just going up, from playing it in the, there, it was the same fingering, but I took it up I guess that's a minor third, and and played that, and that's interesting. Or you can play. That's interesting, because there's a melody there, there's a motif. So yeah, those are good. So the fourth one is limit yourself, and what that means is not like in the negative sense, but limit yourself as I think back to I did an interview with Red Volkart last year, and he was talking about playing the Don Kelly band, where he was the only soloist, and you'd be playing a 4-hour night, and every single intro, outro, solo, and multiple solos during every song, they're all you, and you've got to find some way to keep it interesting. So he would limit himself when he was playing a solo. So let's say he did the first one kind of like himself, like, the way Red Volkart would play a solo. Well, the next time he might say, well, I'm going to go to the neck pickup or both pickups, and I'm going to try to play like Chet Atkins. Or I'm going to go to the back pickup, and instead of playing like me, I'm going to play like James Burton. Or I'm going to play like Don Rich or Pete Anderson. Or let's say you're playing blues, and let's say I'm going to play this solo like Albert King. And the next solo, I'm going to play like early B.B. King, where I'm not going to do vibrato. A lot of people aren't aware that, B.B. King's early guitar style was much more akin to T-Bone Walker. And he didn't have that vibrato that he was known for in his, later career or mid-career. But those limiting, that can make things interesting for yourself and the audience, because you're giving them something different instead of just the same thing over and over again. I'm going to throw out a fifth, just because it kind of came to mind, and that's during the intro piece, I played a little snippet that I stole from Tom Bukovac, and I think like a lot of you guys, I watch the Tom Bukovac show, and sometimes it's more, for what he says and what he's playing, because a lot of times he plays with drive and is doing music that I appreciate, but doesn't really apply well to what I do. But I still get something from every single episode that I watch. Well, last week he did this lick. And that was it. Well, number 5 is be a guitar tinkerer. So steal stuff from everybody, but then make it your own. Figure out ways to do something different with it. So he showed that one little lick. Well, okay, figure out how to play it over the 4 chord too. So, so then you've got... And then I added... So I did this. And then for the 4 chord, And so be a guitar tinkerer. That's number 5, is take things, steal things from others. I mean, that's what, that's why Tom's doing those videos, and that's why I'm doing these videos. It's like, take anything and everything that I'm doing, steal it, take it, and do something new with it. Take it and make a variation of it, because I didn't just, get up and play. No, let's do something with it. So, number 5, be a guitar tinkerer. Take all sorts of licks that you've learned from your heroes and things that you've made, even things you've made up yourself, and find ways to tinker with them and rearrange them. I think back to, I think that's always been something that I've tried to do. And my first, the head of the guitar department at Belmont University, John Pell, that's what he called me. He called me a guitar tinkerer. And I don't know if that was meant as kind of a rub or a compliment, but he's right. I am a guitar tinkerer. So every little thing that I learn, I try to take it and manipulate it and see how many different ways I can use it and make it, part of myself. Because I've never been really good at just mimicking what other people did. So, all right. Well, there you have it for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you will, pick up a looper and start practicing. I hope you will start singing along with the looper, start figuring out what you've sung. I hope you will start thinking about either rhythmic or melodic motifs to make your solos, more interesting. I hope you will, limit yourself in different ways and maybe try to play a solo like favorite guitar player and then do another one like a different one. Or maybe you limit yourself by using a different pickup or a different sound or something like that. And be a guitar tinkerer. Mess around, take apart, rearrange, and, make it your own. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope y'all have a great week. Bye-bye.